If you like this content, please hit like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who might enjoy it too. Chapter 19. I don't like Bravo and he doesn't like me, but he tolerates me now, and I think it is because of the baby. He eyes me wearily before inspecting the cup of grain I put in his feed bucket. He huffs in satisfaction as he picks out the sweeter grains first. It's been hours since I left Tuck at breakfast, and I'm still irritated with him about our conversation. Why am I upset? In airborne school the Black Hat's mantra was, "Only you can control your breaker box," as they mimed opening a breaker box panel on their chests. You control your fears. Wasn't the greater implication that you also held the key to controlling all other feelings? Why can't I turn off my irritability? I wish I could run this by Hugh. I wonder why I never opened up to him before if he was indeed my best and only friend. I'm sorry I was such a shitty friend, Hugh, I say aloud. Bravo throws a quick glare over his shoulder at me then resumes eating. I touch the left side of my ribcage to see if I can find the answers there. I can't. I can only feel my heart beating. I wonder why we humans think the heart can make decisions. Do I really do that? I ask the cool dimness of the barn. I do self-sabotage, I admit to myself. I had disguised my self-sabotaging as humility all throughout my adulthood. I'd been earmarked as one of few front-runners to win Soldier of the Cycle during boot camp. I choked during marksmanship, scoring only sharpshooter instead of expert. Throughout my short army career, I'd let petty supervisors make me believe I wasn't a good soldier. I'd listen to Brent belittle my contribution to the army. I had 3 options at the end: 1. Re-enlist for a different career field, 2. Stay in the medical field and face the promotion board one last time, or 3. Leave the army behind. I chose the latter. I suppose marrying Brent was another example of self-sabotage. When we met I'd seen only his exterior beauty. He did tell me that women, me included, were only mere decorations in his life. In fact, he had said, "You're going to be my wife. Once you sign that dotted line, you become my property." He had said it with a smile, but he'd said it, nonetheless. There had been one man between my divorce and meeting Tuck. I can't even recall exactly what he looked like, only that he was boyishly handsome. He lived in my complex, and we ran into one another a few times at the mailboxes. One morning we exchanged a hello and phone numbers. He left later that week for a 2-week training exercise. When he returned, we met up at his apartment. Suddenly, I couldn't think of anything to say. We just stood in his living room stealing glances at one another. "You want to get down to business?" I asked. He nodded and we began undressing. We had sex on his couch and when it was over, I offered him $20. "Wow, I feel used," he chuckled. "That's all I have," I said. He shook his head then pulled on his shorts. "You sure know how to make a guy feel used. I'm sorry for using you. Should I leave you alone from now on?" I asked as I got dressed too. He shrugged without meeting my eyes. "Probably," he muttered. "Okay," I said. I closed the distance between me and the front door and left. I promise to be the best mother, I vow. I feel unworthy of my child, and he depends completely upon me still. I need to change if I am going to keep my promise. I leave the barn and walk out into the sunlight. I go in search of Tuck. Tuck is hunched over the last gap in the split rail fence, mumbling to himself. He pulls the tape measure from its pocket in his tool belt and extends it parallel to the last piece of wood, resting against the mended fence. He makes a single tick then lets the tape measure retreat back into its silver house. "Tuck," I say to his back. He starts then just as quickly gathers himself before tossing a glance over his shoulder at me. "Hey, Rosie," he replies. "Can we chat?" I ask, propping my elbow on a rung, going for cool and casual. He nods, returning the tape measure to its pocket on his tool belt and his pencil behind his right ear. He turns to me in profile, striking a pose by leaning back onto the top rung beside me and hooking one heel on the lower rung. I'd like to propose a truce. I don't want to bring this baby into a life filled with resentment and endless arguments, I begin. He turns his chin just enough to shoot a suspicious sidelong glance in my direction. I'm a mess, Tuck. I'm a fucked up human being. I've hurt people, and you're right, I self-sabotage because I'm hurting. You know what though, I made the decision to get pregnant, and I owe this baby the best of me. Do you think we can call a truce? Will you help me give this baby the best chance in life? I'm done being mad at you. Can you be done being mad at me? Tuck relaxes his shoulders and spine, and I realize in the year and some change that I've known him, he's never relaxed his posture before. He always walked around like a peacock, chest out, back straight, head on a swivel. This version of Tuck looks vulnerable, if it was possible for a man his size and former occupation to look vulnerable. Rosie, he sighs, shaking his head, his eyes focused on the toes of his boots. You're no more fucked up than anyone else because we're all fucked up, I promise you that. What I said this morning, what I meant to say was that you are too hard on yourself. You're right, you and we're in the business of people. We watch people and learn their patterns in order to persuade or exploit. I've watched you over the last year. You're such a good person, but you're so hard on yourself it drives me crazy. I tried offering you what I thought you deserved, but I was wrong. I was making decisions for you. I was never mad at you. I understand why you're mad at me. I'd be mad at me too. He studies his boots a minute longer then meets my eyes. Do you think that with time, you might come to love me, he asks. No, I answer without hesitation. He nods then drops his eyes back to his boots again. Chapter 20. Rosie, September 2017. The weather is finally tolerable, at least before noon and after 3 p.m. There is less tension all around since Tuck and I had our talk last month. We will never be friends again. We will never progress beyond a one-night stand. But we aren't enemies anymore either. I've never known such steadiness before. Not even when I'd found my pace living on my own in my little apartment back in North Carolina. I think back and wonder why I felt so frenzied inside. The simple answer is fear. I was afraid to be alone. I was afraid to be without Brent. I was afraid of both success and failure. I had lived in constant fear. This slow, predictable life is different. The worst thing about being away from the world is that you have too much time to think about it, all the things you missed, all the things you're missing, and what you might miss in the future. Out here our days all look the same. We wake up in a quiet world that seems to exist solely for us. We do the morning chores and evening chores with ample time in between. It's those in-between hours that I find myself thinking, and I know I'm only tormenting myself, but I can't shut off my brain. Everything is so routine and predictable that I find my mind wanders even during the busiest part of the day, or the most dangerous chores. I watch Tuck and the farrier from the kitchen window. The farrier is hunched over Bravo's rear left hoof while Tuck holds the reins. I consider defying Tuck's order to stay inside the cabin, but we're so far from civilization that I'm not sure what the farrier can do to help me. He's a head shorter and he looks much older than Tuck. Me and the farrier would be dead before either of us made it off Ryan land. The farrier doesn't know me from Adam, it is unlikely he'd risk his life for me. As I watch the two men work, I wonder, what did I ever see in Tuck Ryan? He's lost his shimmering allure. Betrayal kills quickly. I remember how my heart pounded in my chest the moment I realized Tuck Ryan was headed in mine and Hugh's direction over a year ago, as we sat on the curb behind Hugh's clinic sharing a carton of fries. He appeared so alluring then, 6 feet and some change, dark green eyes, and chiseled from head to toe. He's still all those things, though my heart no longer hammers at my ribcage when I see him. Rosie, there is nothing anyone can say to hurt me. There is nothing worse than the things I say to myself, Hugh said as we walked parallel to the Lumbee River. I laughed, kicking a stone into his path. That's true. For people like us, the uncool kids, we've probably heard it all and said worse to ourselves. It must suck to be a pretty girl. I've noticed that good-looking men get favorable treatment, while good-looking women are automatically categorized as stuck-up bitches, or ethereally benevolent. I'm not pretty, I protested. Yes, you are. I never really thought of myself as pretty. The best thing my parents did for all of us was to tell me and my sisters we were mid-core at best. Looks weren't a priority for them and in turn for us. We were mainly judged on our obedience and our ability to bolster our parents' good name, I tittered. You always make light of everything. How come we can't ever have a real heart-to-heart, Rosie? Hugh demanded. I inhaled deeply, letting the cool spring morning air into my lungs, drinking in the scent of invasive yet breathtakingly hypnotic wisteria. If I didn't make light of everything, I might cry. I also don't think of myself. Hell, I don't even know what I look like or where I compare in this world, Hugh. In my mind's eye, I am just a misty figure with no shape or discernible features. I am average in every way. And you prefer it that way, Hugh insisted. We walked for a moment in pensive silence. As we reached a dip in the gravel-paved path, I trotted ahead of Hugh and when he neared, I jumped into a puddle splashing him and myself with red mud. Rosie. Hugh howled while I laughed. I miss those infrequent walks along the Lumbee River. I miss the smell of wisteria in spring. Mostly, I miss Hugh. I wonder, why had I ever cared what others thought of me? Rosie, there is nothing anyone can say to hurt me. There is nothing worse than the things I say to myself, rings differently now. I had been running away from myself for 26 years. The army, Brent, and Tuck, they were all promises of a different version of myself, a better version. Not acknowledging my growing child, the reality of life in a cabin far from civilization and time to think. I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts. Baby, I will try to be better, I whisper to the growing obstruction of my own feet. Elim is the name I am going to call my son. I am not religious, but it doesn't mean I've never sought the secret to life. Elim was the first place the Israelites came upon after leaving Egypt. It means place of strong trees, a literal oasis in the desert. He is my oasis in this desert. He will be my reason to live, to make every moment count, to be better and demand better. The pinging of the farrier's hammer stops, then he rises, a satisfied smile on his face. He looks up at Tuck and they exchange a few formal words and a laugh. The farrier gestures with his left thumb over his left shoulder eastward of the cabin. Tuck extends a hand and reaches for his wallet in his right back pocket. Your father has already paid. I'm going to catch up with him now, I hear the farrier say. Tuck gives him a smile and nod and lets the farrier go. I feel my heart sink and longing constrict my lungs. I am watching my only ticket to freedom stroll toward his truck and kick up dust as he heads east. Once the farrier is out of sight, Tuck strolls smoothly toward the house. He steps through the front door, and I steal a glance out of the corner of my eye. I wonder why men like Tuck only want you when you don't want them. Is it the thrill of the chase? Or perhaps it is that when you're not interested in them, not showing them who you are, it makes you a perfect blank canvas? I don't ask though, I don't care to know. Chapter 20. Rosie, October 2016. As I wake, I feel the warmth and weight of Tuck beside me. He is awake too. The sun hasn't quite crested the horizon and I prefer it that way and I suspect Tuck likes it too. Rosie, today is my birthday. I'm 39 years old. I've spent the last 20 years running and I had nothing to show for it. I was scared, Rosie. Do you ever get scared? Tuck murmurs into the dawn. I turn to face his back, then he turns to face me too. I'm scared all the time, Tuck, I whisper between us as though someone might hear. Me too, he says, his hand breaking the invisible barrier between us and resting his large hand over mine. He doesn't look smug, not here in the privacy of the loft. His face is soft, he's looking at me instead of down at the world, his nose is parallel to the horizon for once. When he is like this and I'm the way I am at this moment, we are able to be honest. I loved you the moment I set eyes on you. I was afraid my entire life that I would never find you. I was terrified that I might screw it up and one or both of us are already taken when we met. I know you hate me, but I can't imagine a future without you, he says. How about now? Can you imagine a future with me in it? I ask, soft and gentle. He closes his eyes and shakes his head. Only a few months and then this little guy is coming. How do you envision his first day of school, first teacher-parent meeting, or when he meets the love of his life? I will be the mother that is heard about but never seen. I'd be his ghost mother, Tuck. His eyes are still closed but a single tear breaks free of the left corner of his eye. I know, he says, his chin quivering so rapidly I think I might have missed a minor nod too. Don't you think that even if I'm right here in this bed, he wouldn't look for me in the bleachers at games, graduation, or even when he pins on his butter bars? I know he'll probably emulate you, but remember he needs me to cheer him on too. What have you done? He squeezes my hand tight. Is it a plea for mercy? After a long moment he opens his all-knowing all-seeing green eyes and fixes me with his pain. Can you imagine how devastating it would have been for him to have a ghost father if I'd left you back there? My absence would leave him with an empty space for me too. I pulled into a blighted neighborhood filled with treasures hiding beneath all the vacancies and dilapidation. Standing before a faded but still proud queen and is Hugh. He presents his new project with a full-body flourish. How did you find this beauty? I call through my window. He smiles smugly as he descends halfway down the wooden steps in need of a few nails and a fresh coat of stain. A member of the Historical Society might have whispered in my ear about her, Hugh says, trying for nonchalance. I step out, shut my car door, and meet him halfway up the steps. The old queen and was in better shape than the exterior betrayed. The high ceilings were poorly replaced with drop ceilings for directional lighting. The hand-hewn hardwood was stained and patinaed from a century of life treading upon it. The windows however were all original and in perfect condition. Every large pane of wavy hand-made glass was capped by a beautiful pane of leaded glass mosaic. What do you think? Hugh nearly squeals. I smile and let out a gleeful screech and we take one another's hands and jump up and down in unison. I'm going to restore her, Rosie. When I leave a house, I usually leave it in immaculate condition. I can't wait for you to see the final product, he laughs. The crackling of the fire brings me back to the cabin. Tuck slides a mug in front of me and settles on the couch beside me. I'm sorry, I have nothing for your birthday, I murmur. That's okay. I've had many birthdays without a party, I'm fine, Rosie. I'll never have a gift for you, Tuck. I have no money and no way to buy you anything. He doesn't say anything. He sets his mug down and moves to stoke the fire by the fireplace. It's not yet cold during the day but the fire is very welcomed in the evenings. Tuck tosses 3 logs into the roaring inferno then takes his place beside me again. Rosie, can I have a kiss? I lean in and plant a kiss on his right cheek then his lips graze my cheek and I'm not me anymore. The warmth of his skin, the familiarity of his lips, the smell of him, it gets me. He cups my cheek making my heart race. Can we go upstairs, he asks, the tip of his nose grazing my cheek. Yeah, I manage to say. He rises and I follow, unable to take my eyes off his face. He settles on his side of the bed and takes hold of my hips pulling me to him. I press my lips against his and we're 5 months younger, back in his condo, on his mattress on the floor. I don't want to want him, but I remember how good he was. When we're done, I roll off him and pull my nightgown back on. I face the wood panels running the perimeter of the loft, hoping he'll just turn out the lantern and we won't talk about this night. He doesn't move toward the lantern. I can feel him studying my back, still propped up on one elbow. Rosie? I answer. I don't know how to fix this so we can both be happy. I don't either. He thinks a while longer, then turns out the lantern, and I close my eyes in relief. If you like this content, please hit like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone who might enjoy it too.